Good Boy is a supernatural horror film where we follow the story from the perspective of a dog who is concerned for his owner's well-being. This is a smaller low-budget film starring the director's very own doggo, so let's see if it lives up to its unique premise. Welcome everyone to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Tim.
Ooh, bark bark baby.
This is a horror movie podcast. We get together and talk about a film. It's that simple. Today, and don't be fooled by the Christmas tree in the background, which, you know, I didn't have up for some of the Christmas episodes, but now is up for episodes that are coming out in January. Don't worry about that. Don't question it. So yes, welcome to the show. We are going to talk about Good Boy today. Now, this is Good Boy from 2025 because there are movies from other years, but also I need to get more specific, right? So, it's not The Good Boy directed by Jan Kamaza, which stars Andrea Riseborough, right? And that is about a 19-year-old criminal, Tommy, who is kidnapped and forced into a rehab process by a dysfunctional couple. It's not that Good Boy. Nor is it The Good Boy, which is a TV show from this year, from Korea, which is about a boxer or a martial artist. It's neither of those. It's the 2025 Good Boy about a dog. It's a horror movie from the perspective of a dog named Indy. That is what we're talking about today. But the fact that there's two other things from this year called Good Boy, and there's a horror movie called Good Boy from 2022, that's just a couple of years old, made this very confusing to search for at every single juncture. I just want to make that clear. This name's been used so much in the last 3 or 4 years. So, yeah.
And I mean, I'll give this movie credit. I think it's probably the most deserving of the title.
That's
without
true.
having seen the other ones.
Yeah, without having seen the other ones. I mean, at least the one from 2022, which we may or may not be doing as a Patreon bonus episode. Ooh. Very, very soon. At least that one I do think has some dog related things. It's not about a literal dog, but it's dog related stuff. So I get why that has that title. But this one is very much a simple premise. It's a horror movie from the perspective of a dog, and the dog being concerned about his owner and wanting to protect him, and that's it. That's the whole gist. It's a short film. It is 70 minutes long, or just over 70 minutes.
Thank you, Lord. More of those, please.
You've been watching too many. I mean, to be fair, 70 is a bit short for most movies. Like, I get that we've had some longings, recently, but
I don't know. It's just nice seeing that runtime being like, all right, cool. I don't have to sneak off before my kids fall asleep and start watching this or something.
just show them the horror movies. It's fine. I'm sure they'll handle it. Fine. Put some hair in their chest. So, yes, I realize they're a bit young for that, but still. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I didn't know about this movie until I randomly got the trailer at the cinema. I actually just got a trailer and didn't know what it was. I mean, what's this movie? I feel like I know what all the horror movies are by the time I get trailers in the theater, but I did not know about this one. And then it was like, okay, it sold me on a premise. It's got a hook, something that's unique.
Well, it's very interesting because I don't think this was supposed to be a big theatrical movie at all. But when they released the trailer online, it got so much reactions and views that it immediately started putting it in theaters and stuff. So it's actually a nice little, I guess, success story. It's it's kind of cool.
Yeah, and of course we will start spoiler free as we always do. We'll give you a warning before we get into the spoilers, and of course if you're enjoying the show on YouTube, do hit the like button. It helps us out a bunch. If you do, you can give us 5 stars on your podcast app, and you can support the show via Patreon or YouTube membership and get some bonuses, but I'll tell you more about that at the end of the episode. So yeah, I mean, the other part of the premise, which is set up right at the start, is that the dog's owner, Todd, I believe his name is, he is sick. He's starting to get sick, and that's kind of the other sort of framing device of the movie. But I think the main thing to say visually is that it doesn't necessarily hide the face of the human beings, but it never focuses on them. It always kind of, you'll see them from the neck down, you'll hear them talking, but it's very much this idea of the dog's the protagonist, so we're going to very much focus on it. Do you know what, if anything, what it made me think of the most, and it's not to the same extreme by any means, But I don't think that if I was to put this into a subgenre of horror with something else, I feel like a Skinnamarink would be the one that I put it with.
Okay.
You know,
I see where you're going.
In the sense that it's kind of avoiding showing you faces, and it's all about the perspective of this particular. Now, this is more straightforward. It's not as abstract as Skinnamarink is, where that's really going for the obscure and hard to understand and all that. This is a bit more, easy to follow, but it's definitely fitting into that kind of subgenre of gimmick, if you will. So
yeah, I didn't think about that, but now that you bring it up, I can see the similarity. So that's interesting.
But yeah, we'll get into it though, and we'll see how we feel and all the rest of it. But Tim, what did you think of Good Boy?
So I was pretty excited for this one, just because I'm a big dog guy. I have 2 dogs. I've had dogs throughout most of my life, and I know sometimes people complain about like when you throw a dog into a story that it's like it's just an easy way to manipulate emotions and stuff, which I get, because people get very attached to dogs, and there's lots of people that like can't watch stuff when animals get hurt and everything. So I was looking forward to this. I actually wanted to see it in the theaters, but I didn't get a chance. But I was like, it feels right to watch this at home, like snuggled between my 2 boys. Well, I mean, before I get into my thoughts, so I was kind of curious where you stand on dogs, because I know obviously you're a famous cat lover. You have some wonderful little cats of your own, but I don't know if you just prefer cats or if you're like anti-dog.
I am not anti-dog. I like dogs well enough. Although I will admit, it depends a little on the breed. The type of dog that's in this movie, great dog. I would love to have a dog like this. A little barky dog, like a little terrier or something like that, or anything that's just small and yelps at the top of its lungs, I think is like a pointless dog. I don't get it. I don't get it. If I want something that size, I want a cat, because the cat's got class. The cat's got some attitude in a way that makes sense. If you're gonna give me a dog like this, or like a German Shepherd or a Lab or something of that kind of size. Like your little gimmicky dogs.
I get you.
If you can fit your dog in your purse, if you're one of those like stereotypes, then I don't like that dog. Probably.
Sure. No, I get you. I've been around different types of dogs my whole life. Like the first dog I had was a greyhound, and then after that dog we basically took on a dog from like one of my mom's friends who was like a little Shih Tzu who we love, but yeah, he was a little shit. So then but yeah, right now I have 2 Brittany's, which are kind of like medium-sized dogs. I would say probably maybe about Indy's size, maybe a tad bigger, but yeah, that's like a nice, like, give it a big old hug, snuggle kind of dog. But okay, I wanted to get that out of the way, because I wasn't sure if you're going to have some cat biases going into this.
You were worried I was going to be rooting against the dog the whole movie?
You never know. All right, so yeah, so I was looking forward to this, and it's interesting, because I do think, really the movie is the gimmick, and, the gimmick is the movie. Like, I wouldn't really say there's much going on here other than the obvious gimmick here of like having a movie star a dog, because like, yeah, if we were to look at the movie as a whole and start dissecting things like the story and looking at it like through that lens, then yeah, I'd say there really isn't much going on here. Which it kind of sounds like I'm being pretty negative, but I actually did have a good time with this, because I do think, like, despite there not really being much else going on, and not really, I wouldn't say it had like good scares or like good like effects or whatever, but again, the star of the show is the dog, and honestly, I was pretty blown away by the performance. Like, you know, which is something I heard a lot going in, is people saying like, oh wow, like no, this dog really like kills it in this movie. And I gotta say, I think, you know, they're absolutely right. Like, obviously I know the dog isn't consciously acting, like, you know, it's just, you know, responding to things a director, you know, who is the dog is the director's real dog and everything. So you know, he's just like doing stuff off camera to get these different reactions, but it works really well. Like, it's really believable. And it's probably the first like animal performance I can think of where it like actually does kind of feel like acting. Like, you know, if you think of like something like Air Bud, like not to say that the dog's bad in that or whatever, but it just seems like a dog doing tricks, you know? Like, this, it feels like, oh, this dog is having like genuine reactions and displaying emotion and stuff. So I do think it is surprisingly compelling, like watching this stuff unfold, you know, through this dog's point of view, which, I mean, and again, I'm a dog person, so I enjoyed it. I don't know, I don't think this would really maybe do much for someone, you know, if they're not like animal lovers or, you know, don't care about like dogs or pets or whatever. It's probably not bringing that much to the table, but I found it fun enough as, you know, someone who likes dogs and everything. I mean, ultimately I think it's just kind of like okay, or, you know, maybe good. Maybe it would have been nice if, you know, they could have had this great animal performance on top of like also having like a really compelling story or something, you know what I mean? But you know, I think that's like the runtime and everything helps with that, like because it's, you know, it's short, it, you know, it does what it needs to do, it kind of, it lives up to the gimmick it's presenting. So yeah, overall I liked it, but I don't know if, you know, I wish maybe it could have been more of a complete package, instead of just kind of having this one like, oh, pretty cool thing that's front and center that I haven't seen before. But, you know, that's kind of it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll throw out another bone, no pun intended, which is that I also think visually it's very good. I think the cinematography is excellent pretty much throughout. I think there's a lot of good stuff with the dog staring off into the darkness, the way it handles like vague figures in the dark, or like it tends to have a really good solid control of the light in this space whenever, you know, we're in nighttime especially, and there's like one light or two lights, there's thunder and lightning coming through the window. It's a good looking movie. So I will add that on to the key point you made there, which is the dog obviously stealing the show. And part of me does, like, I mean, I was actually relieved because I also read that it was the director's real dog, and I was relieved to read that a little bit, because part of me was thinking a couple points in the film, like, how did you get the dog to look scared? Like, part of me is worried that you're just, you know, scaring the dog to make the dog scared. It's the same way, right. Like when one of the best questions I've ever heard posed is that when you've got like a real baby in a movie and the baby's crying, I'm like, you know, admittedly, if you don't see it, it's just a sound effect that's been put in, that's whatever. But like, if you see a baby crying in a movie, they must have done something to make the baby cry. Like, did someone go up and just flick it in the nose or something? Like, just like, cry, you little shit. You know.
Have you ever seen that movie, God Bless America?
No.
It's a Bobcat Goldthwait movie, and I remember seeing him like in a interview or something, talking about how they have this scene like with his baby in the beginning where there's like all this chaos going on. I think if I remember correctly, I think like some people are fighting, maybe even like firing guns and stuff, and it's supposed to be a very chaotic scene, and so the baby is supposed to be like, you know, crying and stuff, and on the day that they're filming, the baby would just not like cry like at all, and they're trying to do like everything they can. And then I think Bobcat like Goldthwait, I forget if he got the parents permission or if he made them leave or whatever, but like he just like did this thing like real quick where he just like got like in the baby's face and just went like blah, 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 like started like making like all these scary sounds, and then the baby like started crying, and they're like, all right, quick, film it. So yeah, that
torture.
Like, stuff like this. Yeah,
torture's the answer. So, you know, that was in my head a little bit. Yeah, I think it's in this weird middle ground where I think it's impressive for what it is, and I think it makes sense to keep the story simple because you are following the movie from the perspective of a dog. You want to get all these ideas across without having to complicate it. So I appreciate keeping it simple, but at the same time, it does mean that in the end, despite how good I think it looks and how good the dog is, I still think it's going to be kind of forgettable.
Yeah.
You know, all in. Like, you know, it wasn't a bad time by any means. You know, it looked very good. But when it got to its ending and it made kind of its final beats and whatnot, I mean, I was like, okay, I kind of got it was going this direction, but it kind of feels, I don't feel the heavy impact of it that I think you want me to feel emotionally from what's happening here in the last 10 minutes. And I think it could have used more development to get me to that point, I think.
Yeah, like I'm happy I watched it, but I don't feel any rush to like ever watch it again. Like this isn't something that I was like, oh, okay, are they putting out a steelbook? I need to own this, and like, you know, this will be a new yearly rewatch or whatever. It was just kind of like, oh yeah, that was cool, but yeah, that, like you said, I don't think I'll be like thinking about it that often.
Yeah, it's impressive in a couple of different ways, but it's like, it's not the full package. It is, you know, much like Skinamarink, which had, like, arguably I think Skinamarink's highs are even higher than anything in this, bizarrely, because I think, like, well, I thought that movie was more boring and tough to get through. There's a couple of moments in that are so good, and, like, individually on their own, that, like, I'll remember them a lot more, I think, than this one.
It's very frustrating how, like, good some of the parts of that were that... Yeah, like it almost makes me angry that the whole movie like wasn't, you know, this complete package, because I was so on board when I saw the trailer for that. Like I was like, oh, this is it. This is like gonna be like the creepiest, like
the new best, like masterpiece, you know. Kind of. Honestly, that's what made me think of Skinamarink as well. It was just this idea of like, okay, this is kind of cool and there's some talent here, but the script just isn't quite there to make it the full thing. You know, just to make it the full complete package that's satisfying in every way. You know, also I love that you say "were" sometimes, like "war," like you're saying "werewolf" from the Mystery Science Theater 3000 film "Werewolf," because that's how the actress in that says it.
No.
Anyway, that was an aside. Larry Fessenden has a cameo. Well, it's a bit more than a cameo, I suppose, but he's in this.
That's right.
He's obviously one of those faces that pops up in a lot of B movies, so feels like we're definitely in that world with this.
He's like a good you know, like indie horror guy. Like he has a lot of pretty good stuff too. Like he did I believe he did Depraved, which we both liked quite a bit.
Yep. He directed that one. He wasn't in that, I don't think, but he directed it. Yeah, I wish I loved it. I think I like it, but it's kind of a detached liking where I'm like, oh, there's some stuff that's really good about it, but I don't know if I love the experience overall, which is a bit of a shame.
No, I mean, I agree. It's cool that they did it. I'm glad that I saw it, but yeah, at the end of the day, that's kind of it.
And the sad part is that, you know, dogs don't live that long, relatively speaking. So it's not like we've got time for this dog Indy to put in another performance that's going to be the better script. You know, this was a one-trick pony.
Well, I mean, that's the thing too. Like, you know, sometimes when you see like a really cool, I don't know if they've done anything before this, but I'm going to assume this is their debut movie, or at least like their kind of big, you know, one that people are noticing. But yeah, this isn't really something that, you know, I would watch and say like, well, it wasn't perfect, but I can't wait to see what this director does next. Because like, because who knows, like, you know, either you don't want to be the guy that's like doing, you know, all these dog movies all the time, because that would get old. But then
just watch the Air Bud reboot. That'll be this guy. They're going to get this guy to do the Air Bud reboot from the director of Good Boy.
I mean, I think they literally are doing an Air Bud reboot like next year.
Of course they are.
But like, yeah, because it's like there. You know, there's two things. It's like, well, yeah, either you're going to be the guy that does like dog or animal movies, and then I don't know if, you know, that would be that exciting, or it's like, all right, well, you're going to do something different, but, you know, so much of this hinges on the dog that it's like, do I really care about what you do next if it's, you know, doesn't have that factor in it? Which hopefully that doesn't sound too harsh. I mean, he could do something next that's like awesome, and I'll be like, oh yeah, like this rules. But at least just going off this movie, you know.
I mean, the directing visually is really good. I don't think there's a problem with the direction. The problems are, I guess all my issues probably come just from the script not being more robust. I think that's where the issues are. Which, to be fair, he did co-write the script, so he's still to blame, but it's not necessarily his fault as a director that's at play here. If anything, he did a really good job directing a dog as the main character doesn't make the job easier. It makes it tougher. So the fact that he's able to put something that feels this coherent together with a dog as the central performance means that he's got a lot of, I don't know, grit in him to get through that, and creativity to get around the limitations of that. So, I don't think direction's the issue. And I did check, this is his first feature-length movie. He's done 10 short movies, but this is his first feature-length movie. So, honestly, I don't know how much we can say really without spoilers at this point. Not that there's a ton to spoil either, to be fair, but at this point, I'm not sure. Obviously there's lots of moments where the dog hears something and stares into the dark, or there's a shadowy figure in the background, and those moments tend to be quite well shot and look quite good. But that's pretty much it. And obviously everything's from the dog's perspective, so if the owner's getting a little sicker, you can sense the dog getting kind of scared, and a little bit of whimpering here or there, and that kind of thing. And it's tugging on the heartstrings. It's doing okay. But that's pretty much all I can really say, I think, before we get into the spoilies. So
yeah, I don't really have much else to say. I mean, honestly, this is probably going to be one of our shorter episodes, because even going into spoilers, there's not that much story to talk about, really.
No, and even a lot of the really well shot moments with the dog and something creepy's happening, it's not like they all stick out separately as individual moments. It's mostly kind of the same idea. With a couple of story beats that are maybe more tied to one or two of them, but other than that, it's pretty typical stuff throughout. So spoilers then for Good Boy. You have been warned from this point forth. So what's so funny about this is that early on, right, because they do a whole thing here where the movie starts with the dog and the owner's sitting there like a zombie, and there's blood dripping from his nose, and he's not answering his phone from what turns out to be his sister Vera, who's calling, and we hear her calling a lot throughout the movie. Is the dog has a couple of creepy moments here, but when the sister comes by and finds her brother like this and he goes to the hospital, it's okay, this is the setup, but the actual main premise is after he's gotten out of the hospital, he goes to move into his old grandfather's place, and that's who Larry Fessenden played. Now, he's been dead for a while, but this house was left to him, left to Todd, so he's here with the dog, and immediately the dog's kind of creeped out and looking at the place, and a lot of the cinematography here really sells this idea of the dog thinking this place is scary. And I thought maybe we were going to play more with that idea of some of this stuff is just scary because it's the perspective of the dog. And the idea that dogs get scared about things where there's nothing really to be that concerned about. But the big thing that I thought was going to be more of a thing that they really didn't do too much with is that early on, they straight up say, the sister on the phone makes some references to the house being spooky or haunted. And then Todd even finds a lot of old VHS tapes of his grandfather who had his own dogs, but his own dogs would always run away. And they kind of point that out. So he went through a lot of dogs, and then he eventually died here himself under kind of mysterious circumstances. And I thought, there's a history to this house with dogs disappearing, and I thought, that's a good little tease, because it means that the main character, the dog that we're all sort of starting to fall in love with because he's a good boy, he's the one in danger. He's the one who's going to be fighting for his life, and maybe the owner's going to be too busy with his illness to notice or look after him and whatever. And I'll be honest, I didn't really feel like all this backstory that they were kind of teasing at in the first 20 minutes ended up being really all that important, just other than the sense that his grandfather eventually did die here, and the dog died as well by being trapped in the basement with him, and some evil entity came to claim his body or soul or whatever. But it never felt like I thought there was going to be more to learn to sort of understand the threat, or or at least set up what the threat specifically was. It never really became much more than just spooky figure is coming towards them. It was always just that,
Yeah, I'll be honest, I don't know if I could really, tell you what happened, just, in terms of, the supernatural angle to everything. And, I'm guessing that's kind of by design, it's supposed to be ambiguous because, we're focusing more on the dog and their experience. But honestly, like you said, there's this backstory that doesn't really amount to much. And then I never really understood, it's okay, is this like a ghost or oh wait, no, it looks more like a demony kind of thing. So is it a demon? And then I was kind of like, all right, so is it like possessing the owner or is it more just like messing with
I
him?
mean, that's not even what I was. It's what I was thinking for like probably like 80% of this movie. The ending kind of obviously changed it a little bit, and it turned out to be like this thing's coming to claim the soul of like him when he
Yeah.
dies, because you know the owner dies by the end, from his illness. What I thought it was for like 80% of the movie, because it kind of kept doing this thing where it was like, oh, this like, you know, black oily hand was coming to grab the dog, but it turned out to be the owner's hand. Or there was times when the owner was like in silhouette and looked kind of creepy, as if it was like merging with the entity. I can see why you thought possessed, but what I thought for most of it was, oh, this is just a visual metaphor for him changing because he's sick,
Sure,
and he's
sure.
not the person he was before, and he's becoming scarier. And I thought that tied into those little moments where he got angry and pushed the dog away, and at one point he even grabs him
Right.
by the neck to push him away, and it felt a little bit rough. And it was like, oh,
Yeah.
I think this idea that the owner, kind of like in how some other movies, they'll represent like alcoholics with like a monster who, like, when they're on the booze, they turn into this monster of some kind. I thought it was kind of doing that from the dog's perspective, and I thought none of it was literal. I thought it was all metaphorical. And then the last 10 minutes said, no, there's an actual gooey demon looking person coming to take the soul of Todd. So that was the
Yeah.
whole thing. But no.
I mean, that makes sense. I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah. Like, if it's not like a literal thing, you can, yeah, definitely make the case of, yeah, using that like as a metaphor or whatever. But yeah, it's, I don't know. I guess I just kind of wish maybe there was a bit more to hang on to, like, from that angle. Like, I don't need everything to be explained, but, yeah, just I don't know, maybe something just a bit more there. It just feels like it was kind of playing second fiddle to, you know, just the spectacle of like, oh, look at this dog. Which, to be fair, like all the dog stuff worked on me, so yeah, I can't complain too much. But yeah, I just wish there was maybe a bit more.
Yeah, I mean that's the big thing. I mean, probably the money shot, and it was sort of the thing where it's like so near the end when this happens, but when the dog like does break back into the house, which for the most part he's inside the house, but like he does get kicked out for a little bit because he bit the owner at one point when he got scared. When he breaks into the house and he stops being angry, like Todd kind of gets out of bed and he's like, you know, I'm sorry, boy, I've been a bit of a dick. And he stands up and he turns around, and the little twist here is that he actually just died. And it kind of, to be fair, it looked like he was dying like a minute ago. You know, he's breathing really like heavy and slowly, and it was like getting worse and worse. Like he was struggling, and he looks at himself and they're like, oh, this is actually just now his soul, but his dog can still see him, which is kind of a sweet idea. But I think like any other movie or like a script that was maybe a bit more thought out would have made this like be a bit more of a like a whole third act as opposed to just like 5 minutes until the movie's over, because it's very late in the movie at this point, and you know ultimately the end of the movie is the dog running down to try and fall, because the demonic figure, whatever you want to call him, like grabs the soul and drags him downstairs, and the dog sort of jumps down into the basement after him to try and save him. And the whole like sort of dramatic ending is that the owner Todd is kind of covered in this black goo now, and he looks at Indy the dog and says, look, you're a good dog, but you can't save me. And he's basically accepting his fate, which I think is a good idea of like, you know, some like a dog owner dying and their soul's able to say, no, you can't come with me, you have to be a good dog and like, you know, go live with my sister or whatever. But
Yeah.
because it's visually very representative of like this demonic figure pulling him back, and then it looks like he deteriorates into a skeleton and it looks really and again, maybe this is all just the dog's perspective. It's, you know, you're not meant to take it too literal. It's all just this idea of how bad this looks to the dog. And the skeleton of the grandpa's dog's down here, like lying on the steps. So that's all very sinister as well.
That was one thing I wasn't expecting, because yeah, like I figured we'd get some supernatural stuff going on with like the owner or ghost or whatever in the house, but I didn't realize that there'd be like a ghost dog too. Like, you know, there's a couple of times where you see like, you know, Indy following this like other dog in the house, and I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. Like it's not just like, you know, a human ghost or demon or whatever. There's like a ghost dog there too.
They even do a couple of tropes that we don't like usually, but I guess it's slightly amusing because it's a dog this time. Like, we literally
like
get...
dream
the dream sequence where the dog wakes up, like, oh, I was having a dream. And I'm like, oh, they just did that trope, but with the dog. That's, at least, I guess, slightly more interesting because it's a dog, but it's still that trick. It's still that gimmick.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the end of the movie is basically the dog just waits there, and eventually the sister kind of opens the door, and she's clearly crying because she's found the body already, and she's like, come on, Indy. And the movie ends with Indy finally going up the stairs, and then it cuts to the title. So, this whole movie is basically the sad story of a dog owner slowly dying, and his dog, like, not understanding that his owner's dying, and then having to accept it at the end. Which... I think that on paper sounds great. It sounds like a really emotional story. It's just that the actual, the actual supernatural entity coming for him, though, just is kind of. It looks good visually whenever it happens, but it feels very undercooked from like an actual story perspective and like an actual like any kind of sense of rules. Like, I admit this would be harder to do with a dog, but like. Maybe establish like some sort of simple visual rule that maybe the dog figures out early on to try and protect his owner or something. Like maybe, I don't know, like the dog notices something to do with shadows or notices like maybe a certain sound accompanies the demon or something, and like something to look out for. I don't know.
Right, yeah.
Just something visual that we can sort of understand that the dog now understands, and then we can kind of understand what the dog's trying to do. It never really kind of evolves to that next kind of layer, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't necessarily hate the supernatural stuff, but, you know, I just wish maybe there's just a little something extra to kind of, you know, put it over the edge, to just make it feel like a more complete package, and maybe that would have, wowed me a bit more or whatever. But
yeah, I mean, early on I thought the grandfather was sacrificing dogs to like a demon or something, because that's why, because they kept saying, oh, you lost a lot of dogs because the dogs would always run away, but I'm like, are they? You know, because there's one part where Indy's out in the woods and he looks into like a little ditch, and it looks like there's a couple of dog skulls in there. There's also a creepy pair of eyes in the back that are looking at him, which is a cool little shot.
That was a cool scene, yeah.
But it made me think, oh, was that grandfather doing something like really vicious where he was killing dogs as sacrifices to, I don't know, live a long life, but then he couldn't kill one dog, so the demon was like, F you, I'm coming for you now. I don't know.
That could be kind of cool. Then like you have all these like dog ghosts that are angry at this new guy, and then Indy has to like protect him from like other dogs or something. Like that could be something cool there.
And then the heart of the movie in some ways is that no, Indy's owner would never do that to him. He would never sacrifice him, and the other dogs like don't get that because they obviously had this horrible and again, I don't know if I'm even remotely correct in any of this thinking. It's just what my mind jumped to when they said, oh, the dogs kept running away. At the very least, it made me think, oh, something targets the dogs.
Yeah, I mean, maybe if this is like a literal entity that, again, not like going into the end of the movie or whatever, but, if we are to take this thing as being real, then yeah, maybe it feels threatened by dogs because they can sense it or whatever. So then, maybe the grandfather had more dogs that it went after or something. But it doesn't really matter because, like you said, it ends up not really coming, to much, which is kind of a shame.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a big sort of creepy scene where you see the grandfather sitting on a chair. That's the dog I'm talking about here, just to be clear. And when the owner comes back and finds him, he's like completely covered in dirt and locked in the basement. And it's a bit kind of, because it ends with a cliffhanger where this, figure appears behind him, and then it just cuts to like, oh, the owner's back now. The dog's been trapped in the basement. He's covered in filth. He's dirty. He needs to be cleaned. I don't know if that's indicating that they tried to take the dog and, Indy fought too hard or what that's saying exactly, but because that's the scene after that's where he's washing the dog. He's like showering him in the bathtub, and he starts coughing up blood, and he coughs blood on the dog's face, which I'm like, yeah, what a trooper taking the blood shot to the face. Poor Indy. But a lot of the tension stuff is pretty similar, and it's well done, but I don't think it evolves that much either, right? And I think that's where establishing some kind of like either rule that we can then play with, or just changing it up in some way where it's escalating in different ways. Where, like, yeah, I mean, like, if we're going to play with the idea that this spirit's after the owner and the dog's going to try and protect them by going after it, I feel like there could have been more done there with, like, oh, the dog's trapped outside the house and, like, this thing's inside the house and the dog's trying to get in. I feel like there could have been more of that kind of thing, like simple obstacles the dog needs to try and overcome that we can kind of believe that he can get out of. I mean, they kind of do one where he's chained to the doghouse and he kind of like runs away and then runs back at the doghouse to flip it so the chain breaks. I was like, okay, that's a neat little moment. But I think some more problem solving. As silly as that sounds, problem solving from the dog, but it would have been, you know, I think what would have elevated it.
Yeah, like there's a few cool actiony shots like that, and when he's kind of like, you know, escaping from the house, and he like jumps out the window, which was that was kind of shocking because it was like a pretty decent fall, but I mean, luckily he's okay. Yeah, like stuff like that was cool because it was like, oh, okay, now like you're saying, yeah, he's actually not just reacting to stuff, but like actually, you know, figuring out how to do something or escape from something.
Yeah. I think it could have been a little bit better defined for these sequences so that it felt like we really got like what he was achieving as he was doing stuff, as opposed to it feeling just kind of generally running, being scared, going back to the owner. It felt I feel like there could have been a way to focus in on it a little bit more, I guess is what I feel. That, and also maybe just do a little bit more with the backstory to make it feel like it has some more context, I guess.
You know what part kind of made me laugh is when they run into like the creepy fox hunter, and then the you know, the owner Todd like just starts talking to him, and because this guy is like dressed like you can't even see his face, he just has this like all tactical hunting gear on.
The reveal building up to him is that we see like the gooey black like demonic figure like coming towards the dog from behind, and it's a really good shot. But after the first couple times you see it, it switches to this guy in camouflage, implying, oh, it was just him the whole time. But no, it was definitely something different to begin with.
It just made me laugh because he like looks so creepy, like with, you know, wearing this getup, and then when, you know, Todd just starts like talking to him, like he doesn't even, you know, like unzip his like face hood or whatever to be like, hey, it's me, how's it going? Like he just like keeps talking to him like that, and it's like dude, like you gotta know like how like crazy you're looking right now. But
yeah, Todd's like, oh, Richard, it's you, remember me? I'm Todd, all grown up.
I mean, good visual though, like of you know, that guy. The fox hunting stuff never really came to anything either. Like I thought that might be more of a thing.
No, I mean, there's a point where the dog kind of goes into like one of the traps, but it never really amounts to a whole much. Yeah, I guess one of the other running themes of the movie is that Todd kind of doesn't like accepting help from people, so he gets mad at his sister, stop calling me and asking him if I'm okay. He doesn't get mad at Richard, the neighbor, but the neighbor like helps him out with a generator, and he's like, hey, if you need any help with that, just call me over, I'm just down the road, blah, blah, blah. And he just kind of waves him. I was like, no, I'll be fine. And he just, he doesn't want help. And the one scene where he tries to go get his help when he realizes how serious his illness now is, he's left it too long. Like the doctor lady after the MRI is like, hey, like if you came sooner, we could have put you into this clinical trial, but you're it's too advanced now, it's too late. And he gets mad, and that's actually one of the scenes where he gets mad at the dog, and it feels a little bit harsh. But I think there is maybe like kind of like almost a like, listen to your dog if your dog thinks you're in trouble. It's almost kind of the moral, but not just your dog, but the people around you as well. It's like he shuts out all the people around him, as few of them as there are, and then the dog's the only one left. And the dog tries his damnedest, but he's not enough to actually make a difference ultimately, which is sad. So it is a bit of a downer. It's a downer movie after all. And that's kind of it. There's not a whole lot to talk about, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, Todd falls asleep watching horror movies, like old black and white, I assume public domain horror movies. So
yeah,
so that adds a bit of atmosphere in a couple of sequences. Yeah, not a whole lot to say. I think the visuals, obviously the dog's performance and the visual style, which is very much like always keeping the humans in silhouette or the faces above camera or whatever it is. There's some nice shots of stuff creeping up towards the dog, but that's also a source of frustration because the supernatural stuff is very poorly defined, and I think we could have done a bit more there. And if you're going to do the whole thing where Todd like becomes his ghost at the end to like, you know, his dog can still speak to him, I think there should maybe be a little bit more of you know, him maybe like having to help the dog and be like, hey, like, I mean, it's one thing for him to say, you know, you can't come with me and save me, you should stay here. It's another thing for, I guess the movie is kind of criticizing Todd for like putting too much of a burden on his dog because he's refusing so much to take help from anyone else that these dogs having to shoulder everything, the poor boy. But yeah, so yeah, so sadly it's not like a home run by any stretch. I wish it was, because it's got a few ingredients that are really, really cool and really good, but everything else feels a little bit middling, and that's a shame. So
yeah.
All right, Tim, what you going to rate Good Boy?
Yeah, you know, if I was going on Indy's performance alone, it would be an easy 10 out of 10. Like, yeah, like really can't undersell just like how, you know, great this dog was. I mean, it makes like so many other like animals just look like shit compared to it. I mean, next time I'm gonna be watching like Homeward Bound or something, I'm just gonna be like, look at these amateurs, like, you know. But you know, unfortunately, you gotta look at the movie as a whole. Again, you know, it's a gimmick, but it does the gimmick very well, so I can't really complain. You know, because when I hear a horror movie from a dog's perspective, like they did a good job of that, and yeah, that's what I got served. It's just a shame that, you know, that one aspect is great, but then a lot of the other stuff doesn't live up to it as well. So I think I'm gonna give it a 6.5, you know, which is not a bad score. Like, to me, it's kind of like in that okay, maybe kind of good range. You know, it does what it does, which is good. It's just yeah, I just wish there was a bit more to elevate it or to get me maybe more excited. But yeah, I'm not mad at it. You know, it wasn't a frustrating watch or anything by any means. It's just, you know, kind of like you said before. It's like, yeah, it's like a little forgettable. Like, probably not in a rush to watch it again anytime soon. But yeah, happy I at least watched it this, you know, one time, and again, you know, it's worth it for, you know, that spectacle and this viewpoint, which is something new and different. Which, you know, respect for, you know, for it to, you know, do something like this that, you know, I hadn't really seen before. But yeah, like you said, it's a shame that it doesn't really end up like elevating itself above that.
That's actually the point I was going to make myself, is that it never elevates itself beyond the gimmick that it has, and I think that's the shame. I think that's what separates it from movies that have a bit of a gimmick but end up kind of like turning it into something like not quite the same thing. But I think when most people hear It Follows the first time and they hear, oh, it's a sexually transmitted ghost, that sounds like a stupid gimmicky premise. But the movie is so well written and directed that it kind of like elevates beyond what that sounds like initially. And I think this never like the good dog stuff's great and it looks pretty good, but like it never rises above into, oh, this just ends up being a banger of a movie in its own right. And it's why I think ultimately, unless it just happens to really touch you, if you happen to have a dog that looks like this dog, maybe it'll hit you really hard or something. But I think for the most part, it's not going to be that remembered. So that's kind of a shame. I think your score sounds about right. I'm tempted to just maybe go with the flat 6, so not too different. But yeah. So just, you know, nothing I'll be rushing back to. Sadly, I wish I liked it more than I did. But there you go. That is Good Boy. So yeah, tough to say exactly what's coming next week at the moment. I don't think anything's written down. We're recording this, as you can tell by the Christmas tree, a little bit in advance. But let us know what you thought of Good Boy if you've seen it in the comments. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. And of course, you can support all the content, support streams after midnight over at Patreon or via YouTube membership, and get access to bonus episodes, which go up Most months. I mean, it used to be every month, but we committed to doing a week. We used to skip a week, so we'd always definitely get one done.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have an episode every week, and we still fit in a bonus most months. So there's a back catalogue of about 65 of them at this point. You also get even more stream segments, which are sort of like little bonus discussions, like maybe about a top 5 or something silly. It is January as this is going out, so our big year preview episode of Even More Streams is a likely, if not soon, certainly by the end of the month we'll have that out. We usually make a point of doing like a big 2-hour preview where we go through, whatever website's got an article listing all the horror movies coming out and sort of giving our thoughts, feelings, anticipation, or whatever. So if that sounds like fun, that's also something you can get when it comes out. You can go check out the last year or two's versions of it and see what we said about movies a year before they came out. Maybe we were right about some of them. Maybe we were dead wrong. It's entirely possible. But that is something you can go check out. But there you go. That has been the show. Thank you very much for joining us. We do appreciate it. Keep watching scary movies, and we will see you next time.